Welcome back to the Smart Girl Politics Podcast. I am Teri Christoph, and this is the Gen Xish show of the week. And of course, I am joined by Fingers Malloy from somewhere in the bowels of Indiana. I like that.
Bowels?
I don't know. In the deepest, darkest Indiana. I don't know. What do you describe Indiana? In the not rolling hills of Indiana,
We're the crossroads of America.
The crossroads of America.
That's
Indiana.
right.
How's things out your way?
I am disgusted by the behavior of my fellow human beings.
Which ones?
Oh, you know them. Those people who
That
don't
are
care
doing
about...
what?
Well, here's the deal. So, unfortunately, I had to leave the house to go to the grocery store the other day. And it's something I didn't want to do, but running out of milk, running out of bread, had to leave the house. So I head to the grocery store, and what do I see? I see people who are so self-centered and so reckless with their behavior and not caring about other human beings. They're throwing their god-awful, dirty, used rubber gloves in the shopping carts at the grocery store and on the ground.
Yeah.
I can't help but think of these poor grocery store employees who are, listen, I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say they're risking their lives. We've seen stories like in Chicago of people who are working at grocery stores who've caught COVID-19 and are no longer with us, unfortunately. And to the idea that you could look at these people, they're providing you obviously an essential service, a valuable service, and not getting paid a lot of money doing it. And you think to yourself, you know what? Oh, I don't want this rubber glove anymore. I'm just going to throw it in the cart. And then they're dealing with all the other stuff with working at a grocery store in the age of the coronavirus. Now you're going to make them pick up your disgusting used rubber gloves.
Yeah, I've seen
better.
a lot of posts from all over the country of people like documenting where they're seeing gloves as they go about there every day, in the parking lot, in the park. Like people are just dropping them wherever they feel like dropping them, which is pretty gross. But, it makes me think we've always been kind of gross. I don't know if this happens in your area, but almost every trip to a grocery store, I will find one of those floss sticks on the ground. It's a thing.
No.
Oh, all over the place here in Northern Virginia. I don't know if it's a national thing, but it never fails that you will see a used floss stick somewhere in a parking lot. So it's just kind of like, to me, the latest and greatest way of being disgusting is by disposing your PPEs where somebody else has to pick it up. I think we've always been gross. It's just a new way of us being gross, maybe.
Oh, that's I must admit I have not seen the floss sticks anywhere.
It's a thing, man. I see them everywhere around my area. I was on a walk the other day, and there's just one on the sidewalk. I'm like, what would possess you to first of all, to be walking around and flossing, and then just like, boop, I'm done.
Well, that's the thing. Listen, I applaud your oral hygiene if you're just walking through a park and flossing, but who does that?
That's the thing. You never see anybody do it, but yet these floss sticks are all over the place here. I'm telling you, it's a thing. But now it is sort of slightly being replaced because nobody wants to, be doing, their flossing out in public right now. That would open your gums up to all sorts of disease and everything. But you're right. The gloves, and it's kind of, to me, it's offensive in many ways, not the least of which is that, these are gloves that you decide aren't worth anything, but are worth everything to people who are on the front lines, like it's
Right.
no big deal. But you hear about shortages, hospitals or healthcare professionals that have shortages of these kinds of things. And then your fellow man is just like, big deal.
Well, have you ventured out at all?
I have a little bit. So what's happened in the last week since we've talked here at the grocery stores in the DMV, the District, Maryland and Virginia, because we share the same chains of stores, is we had a couple grocery store workers get sick, and I think one did die, unfortunately. So the way that the grocery stores are reacting is they're obviously now going to limit the number of people who can be in it at any one time, and it depends on which store and how many square feet. Like, it's like, you can only have one person per so many square feet in it every time, so they're going to have a worker at the door that counts. And Trader Joe's has been doing this for a while, and I think they're doing it nationwide, where they only let 25 or 30 people in. So now that's the thing, is limiting, and the grocery store aisles are now one way, so that there's no chance of you passing anybody. So it's one way. I have not gone. I made my 19-year-old daughter, I figure her immune system's stronger than mine, I make her go do some of it. But
that's what kids are for, right?
Yeah.
It's for shopping in COVID-19 days and organ farms. Those are the two reasons.
She needs to get out. I know that, like, 7-year-olds and stuff, and you have a teenager as well. I mean, the teenagers are the worst. They are the ones that are going crazy, and she is. I'm like, please, just go to the grocery stores. So that's kind of the big change in the last couple of days here in my area, is having the limited number of people that can get in, and then you can only go one direction, which is such a pain in the butt.
Just like Great Britain.
Is it?
No, but...
Well, I had no idea. It was, yeah, you did. You threw me for a loop, and I was going to say something really fascinating about this.
They drive on the left side of the road.
I don't know if you knew this, but the Kristoff family took a European vacation last May. Thank God we didn't do it this year. And they do drive on the wrong side of the road.
And they have one-way lanes in the grocery store.
And the thing about it is, when you're crossing the road, you got to look in the opposite direction that you're used to looking at, because they're coming from a different direction, and you're like, wait, what? So, but we survived. I think that Virginia is still in pretty decent lockdown for a while. It's sad. My kids are going crazy. Well, my youngest, my 12-year-old, she's great. She's fine with it. The 16-year-old, he's thrilled to not be at school and not having to go work at Chick-fil-A. He does takeout, and they're not doing any takeout, so they don't call him in. But the 19-year-old, she is not happy.
Well, no, I bet she's not. I'm finding the teenager sleeps. If I let her sleep, she would sleep 20 hours a day.
I know. It's my son. That's my 16-year-old son. He's like, I'm like, what is the best thing you've done all week? Oh, I slept all morning the other day. I'm like, that's great. When you look back on this crisis, he's gonna remember sleep. But it means that they're all probably so sleep deprived during the normal life that they never get enough sleep. So I'm all right with him sleeping right now, because I figure he probably didn't get enough the first 3 quarters of the school year.
Now, here's what I'm noticing, though. I'm sleeping a lot more, and I'm not digging it.
Are you staying up super late? This is my problem. I am staying up. I stay up late. I stay up way too late.
The other night, I had I fully intended to be in bed by 1. I laid down, and then I remembered I had Easter candy I had to get out of the car. So I got up, and then I went outside, and then the cool, fresh air hit me. I was up until 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, no.
Could not sleep. Yeah, and it just screwed me up. So
you have kooky work schedules anyways. I always figure you're good at adapting to a new sleep schedule.
Yeah, but still, when you have things to do the next day, I'm setting up interviews with people, and because I am the king of small media.
You are,
Kristoff.
I know.
So try to game plan the next day, and then all of a sudden you're up until 6 o'clock in the morning. It makes things tough. So yeah, it's really screwed me up. Today, before we sat down to record here, I took a 4-hour nap, and now we're recording this at 8:30 at night. I'm pretty much going to be up till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning again.
Yeah, but no regrets. When in your life are you going to be able to do this? That's how I think. I was like, I'm going to take a nap this afternoon, but you never get to do that.
At some point, we're going to retire, Teri, and then we could do all that stuff. At some point.
Yes, my 401k is screaming, please retire. Yeah, no. At some point, but for the next quarter century. That ain't happening. So, well, I don't know. Maybe for you.
That's the spirit.
I love work. It gives me purpose. It fulfills me. Never mind, because I was just complaining to you about it before. You're like, yeah, it sure does. So I didn't know if you know this about me. I don't listen to political talk radio. I listen to sports talk radio. Because who wants to listen to politics?
This is the golden age of sports talk radio right now.
Well, and especially in the D.C. area where, the Redskins are obviously the Nationals just won the World Series, so the Nats are big news, and the Capitals won in 2018, won the Stanley Cup. So it's not like we have nothing to talk about, but the Redskins are the thing, and it's boring. But I like to listen to it anyway because, you like having music, not someone talking.
But what are they talking about?
Well, that's the thing. What they're talking about right now is like, what should the game plan be to bring sports back? And they talk about that a lot. Like, because I guess particularly Major League Baseball has talked about a couple different scenarios in which they could bring it back, where they play all their games in Arizona. Or there's been a couple different things. I don't know all the specifics, but I guess I was surprised in listening to this, the number of people who are against bringing it back, when I would have thought that everybody would want to see like something normal, like even if it's a baseball game where there's nobody in the stadium. I don't know. I just thought I'd bring that up to you because, we're just, nothing seems to be giving right now. Like there's just, it's keep more of the same, more of the same. Oh, we're extending it another week. We're extending it another 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Don't you think like we need something?
Yes,
something to break this up?
There's just not any good news out there. I'm a Detroit Tigers fan. Mr. Tiger, Al Kaline, just passed away this week. It just feels like bad news, bad news, bad news, bad news. We're surrounded by bad news. So the idea of bringing back baseball in a way that, is it the ideal way to bring it back? No. I would like to see people in the crowd, people in the stands. I would like to go to a baseball game. Can't do that. Well, if they're putting together some sort of plan, and it is an odd plan from at least some of the details I've seen. They're talking about having teams play double headers of 7-inning games. I don't know how that's going to work. I've got friends in Arizona who have told me they don't know how they're going to be able to get this done because in June, July, August, it could still be 98 degrees at midnight. So they're going to play all their games at really late at night or 6 o'clock in the morning. And it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to be able to do it. But I just get a sense that President Trump got on the phone with all of the commissioners of the major sport leagues and I'm guessing urged them to try to come up with plans to kickstart their leagues as far as the NFL goes, make sure that their league starts on time. I mean, that's one good thing about the NFL, and I know a lot of conservatives do not like the NFL for the whole kneeling during the national anthem, but the NFL has been a distraction because it has really turned into a 12-month-a-year league. You had free agency in March, and now we're coming up to the NFL draft, and you just turned this into sports talk radio, Terry.
I did, because it's better than politics. There's nothing new in politics, really.
That's true.
Other than, I guess Biden's the guy, whatever.
Right, but at least with the draft, it's going to be interesting if you're a fantasy football league aficionado. This draft is going to have the feel of fantasy football because the NFL is not letting teams meet in their facilities. So you're going to have coaches and general managers at home, probably on Zoom.
Yep.
Putting together their draft boards and
right, because they can't even go to like their like Redskins Park to do it from Redskins Park. They have to do it from home.
Right. So it's going to be interesting to watch, and I don't know how they're going to televise it. And the other, I'm going to be very interested to see what the NFL Network and ESPN's ratings are for this draft and how they're going to broadcast it, because there's not going to be a crowded room. There aren't going to be any fans in the background. They're not going to have the football player who gets drafted walk up and shake the commissioner's hand. It's all going to be interesting, but it's going to be interesting to watch. But I wouldn't be surprised. Like, either no one's going to watch this thing, or people are going to say, hallelujah, we've got a little bit of sports to watch.
Oh, I think a ton of people will watch, because that's still, what, like 2 or 3 weeks away, and we're already climbing the walls.
Yes. So that's why
I'll watch, and I don't even, well, I mean, the Redskins have number 2, baby. So
yeah, I hope
we'll
you
see.
Guys screw that up, because
we
Lions
will. Do not worry about it. We will screw it up.
The Lions have the number 3 pick, and I would love to get Chase Young, a defensive end out of Ohio State, because the Lions have no pass rush. But you guys just drafted a quarterback last year. So the only way we're going to get Chase Young is if you guys bail, if the Washington Redskins bail on their quarterback.
Yeah, whether Ron Rivera thinks he can do something with Dwayne Haskins or not.
Right.
See, so, I listen to Sports Talk Radio.
Look at you.
That's right.
But it's interesting. I'm in central Indiana, but my first 28 years on this planet, I lived in Michigan. I'm a huge Detroit Lions fan, so I still listen to Sports Talk Radio out of Detroit. And the sports talk station I listen to in Detroit, they have obviously had to make major cutbacks. They've cut talent. Their on-air personalities have taken huge pay cuts because the ad revenue obviously isn't there. I mean, you've got small business owners who currently they're in the middle of their government shutdown. They're being told not to open their doors. And so they don't have a lot of spending cash to spend on ads for a business that they can't currently open. So their ad revenue is dried up, and they have nothing to talk about. I mean, there's only so much you can talk about contingency plans for for Major League Baseball to save their season and the NFL draft. There's only so much you can do on a 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week sports talk station when everything's shut down.
Well, we have a couple good shows locally. There's one that's kind of a midday-ish one here that they've had little, I don't know if skits is not the right word, but little segments that they've done for years that are not sports related. So, and I think I love them. There's one where they have listeners call in and say what they had for lunch, and then they'll rate them on however, like you rate a player at a combine, I guess. Like they rate it like that. It's pretty good. I enjoy it. It's fun.
Look at that.
Yeah, all I'm saying is, if they could work it out, even if it was just a few games every once in a while, like I think it would really do us good as a nation to have something like a baseball game here or there if the players are up for it. I mean, we're gonna have to take some risks at some point. We just can't stay at home. It's too much. It's too much.
Yeah, I think the American people are going to start demanding that we stop putting our economy into an induced coma.
We have to. I'm just hearing too many stories, and it's like, I love the way that people are coming together. It's really cool because Americans are generous and we're pretty smart and we come up with really cool ideas. So I love the way like our local farmers market has come up with ways for you to order from the local farms or whoever, the people there that have the stalls at the farmer market. It's like they're really trying to accommodate, but I could tell, I know it's not working. It can only go on for so long. And I know that the SBA loans are coming through for a lot of small businesses, and I think a lot of that will be forgiven, a lot of that debt that they have to take on. But how long can how long can we do it? We can't just keep printing money and giving it to, there's got to be an end game. And I see no positive, I don't hear enough of what the end game is.
We've been printing money for decades.
Well, I know, but how much? I know.
But this is the time we should be printing money. It's not, the other times we shouldn't be printing money, but here, this is such a disaster. If the government is going to force your hand and shut you down, they better have a plan to make sure that all these small businesses don't go out of business. I don't look at this as a bailout. It would be one thing if this were natural economic conditions and businesses weren't prepared. This is the government saying you cannot open. You will shut your business down. Or
Right,
else.
right. I was
So
talking with my husband about this, and it's going to be up to individual governors. I'm stuck with, blackface guy here in Virginia who says
mhm.
we're closed through June 10th. Although a lot of the models have changed and kind of hopefully for the better, moved up like when the peak date might be, but still that's peak of people staying at home, like that's peaking when people go back out. We're going to get it at some point, so you can't stay home until there is a vaccine or a cure.
Right.
So I don't know, your state is probably much more, what's the word I want to use, I mean, just kind of with it, like more like in tune with what the people like. My guy's like, I don't care what you think. You're just gonna do this. He's not good. I'm assuming you have a better governor in Indiana.
This is bringing out the worst in some governors and local officials. You're hearing of some. There was a story, I believe, last week that there's a prosecutor in Ohio who wants to charge people with felonious assault for meeting in large groups.
Oh, it's insane. There's that story out of, I don't know, Colorado maybe, of the dude that got arrested because he was playing t-ball with his daughter and the wife were out in a field where they were near nobody, and these police just were like, no, you can't be here. And he's like, so he wouldn't, say who he was. He wouldn't show ID. He said, I have every right to be here. I have every right to be here. That's insane. And then there's LA where they're paying you to turn in your neighbors.
Right. Well, they have to think of new ways to generate revenue because that's like that sweet, sweet red light ticket revenue.
I know. Isn't that great?
Yeah, those cameras aren't, bringing in the money they used to. All the citations they're writing for businesses that are not meeting code, all that money's not coming in. I mean, you're already hearing governors saying, "Hey, we're going to need a bailout." Because they're handing out checks, they're printing the money left and right for small business, for corporations, for individuals, and states are raising their hands saying, "We want gimme, 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 gimme." So yeah, so now you're gonna have you're sending police out there, and you're having these stories pop up that policemen, the virus has infected police forces around the country, and you're going to have them interact more with the citizenry to break up t-ball games in a park. I mean, it'd be one thing if there are 50 people and you pull up with your car and your bullhorn and say move along, but it's another thing to
and it's
to hassle a family.
Good thing to get out. It's a good thing that, as long as you're practicing social distancing, it's a good thing to get out. Otherwise, I mean, I think was it Rush or somebody had some, it's not, it's lives versus lives. It's not, that's what we're dealing with right now. It's not that we don't feel sympathetic for people who got sick or that we necessarily want to get sick ourselves, but it is lives versus lives. Just staying at home all the time and having your career ruined, your business that you've built forever ruined, your mental health. There's all sorts of things. It is lives versus lives right now. That's why we need something smart, some common sense going on here, and I am not anticipating that happening here in Virginia anytime soon.
Well, but you guys were kind of late to the party when it came to a lot of this stuff. I mean, I couldn't believe I had a conversation with you. It was probably just a week ago, but you know how it is
that one long day ago.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy how time is just creeping along.
Or is it rushing? I don't know.
Yeah, but the idea that you could not too long ago in Virginia go into a diner and have breakfast, where in the Midwest they had shut that down well before they did in Virginia. So there are some things where you guys have been able to have a little bit more of a sense of normalcy for a longer period of time than the folks in flyover country.
Yeah, but did I see that you guys might be a little hot spot there in the Indianapolis area?
Yes. Yeah, it's not good. There's pictures of the mobile morgues that they have.
No.
Yeah, outside of a few hospitals in Indianapolis. So, yeah, that's why I'm not crazy about going out, even though, you know, there are just enough stories out there of younger people getting this and
Absolutely.
really messing with them. I just saw a piece yesterday about a former University of Michigan football player. He was on the 1997 national championship team, and he had a 10-year NFL career. So this is not an old person. I mean, he's young. He's younger than I am, and it nearly killed him. And he's in really great shape. So it's just frightening to, on one hand, you're thinking to yourself, well, this doesn't really, I mean, most people who get it don't even know they have it. But then you hear these stories, and of course the media is just amplifying these stories. You need to take this seriously. And so when you hear media reports that if you're in central Indiana and Indianapolis is the new hotspot, you see pictures of these mobile morgues outside of hospitals. It's like, do I really want to go to the grocery store for some Fruity Pebbles right now? I think I'll just stay home.
Yeah, I get it. You need to put on your hazmat suit to go out now. But then you hear a ton of stories from lots of areas where healthcare workers are not being used at all. Like it seems like the hot spots seem to be sucking up all the resources, obviously. And there's areas, large parts of the country where there's nothing. I mean, because people, they're canceling all the elective things, and so there's like nothing. People are being furloughed from jobs in areas, and I think like San Diego was one of them that I heard about. I think possibly places in Pennsylvania. So it is very local, and there's big parts of the country where it's really not a problem. So
I think
don't
I
know
would
where
be
we're
going
with this.
crazy if I lived in Pennsylvania right now, because their liquor stores are all state run, and very early on they closed all the liquor stores, so you can't buy bourbon or any hard liquor in Pennsylvania. You could still, just a couple of years ago, I guess they made it available for purchase, a beer and wine in grocery stores, but hard liquor, you can't buy it in Pennsylvania right now.
They can come right on down to Virginia, because at least that's open here.
Well, Delaware, the governor of Delaware instructed state police to pull over anyone with a Pennsylvania license plate and ask them what they're doing in Delaware.
Insane.
Yeah, that's where we are.
I hate hearing that. I hate it. That's where people are going to be like, nope, not anymore. So I don't know what we'll see with some sort of citizens revolution, but it can't go on like this. It is lives versus lives. To sort of pivot us towards our Gen Xish conversation of the week, what are you doing? What are you watching? Are you spending a lot of time watching things? Are you binging things on Netflix or anything like that? Is that your recreational activity of choice, or are you just podcasting all the time?
I'm podcasting all the time. It's really funny. I tried to binge watch a show a few days ago, and this just tells you how out of it I am when it comes to pop culture. I started binge watching Curb Your Enthusiasm. I'm on season 1 of Curb,
which is from what year?
2000, I believe. 2000 or 2001. I mean, they're back now, but I think it took like 6 years off. So
have you watched any of the recent episodes?
No, I'm on season 1.
Okay, well, it's funny. I do like it. It's funny. But Richard Lewis is so scary looking oh, my God. You know who Richard Lewis is.
Of course. Yeah, a comedy legend.
So, like, old and feeble. It's
really
disturbing. Oh, I watched an episode a few weeks ago. It was hilarious. He's not that funny because he's old and feeble. Like, and I just remember him as like, because he had a show. I don't remember what it's called, but he had a show with Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh my goodness. I remember that show.
So I think of him as that guy. Was he also quite a frequent guest on Howard Stern when Howard was still on terrestrial radio? Yeah. So he's so old now. He's like hunched over, and he's old.
Well,
he's really old.
He was hunched over. That was one of his.
I'm
that
telling
was part
you.
of his shtick.
You got to watch him now. It's sad. It's almost like he's on there just I don't want to say pity because that's not really what I mean, but like just being generous by having him on there because he's really kind of past his prime, shall we say.
I believe he was on the first episode of Curb. I mean, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
It's a great show. I mean, Larry David, it's good. I like it. I've always liked it.
Well, good. If I ever sit down to watch the rest of it, I will.
So you're not a binger. So you're not like the rest of us who have watched Netflix, who have come to the end of Netflix.
What are you binging?
So what I decided, and I don't know what brought it up other than, I don't know what, because YouTube has a great wealth of stuff on it too. So I decided I would watch a miniseries from my youth over again. It was from 1983, and it's called... No, but I did watch the Thornbirds. It is called The Winds of War, and it was starring Robert Mitchum, and it's about the 2 years basically before the U.S. gets into World War II. But I remember it being a thing. It was, I don't know, it's probably middle school maybe when it was on, but I remember it being a thing. It's terrible, let me tell you. And rewatching it is awful. The acting is so bad. It's just really, really bad. But it made me think about like how a big deal various television events were for us. My kids don't quite understand it, but it was a big deal. A miniseries was a big deal. The Thornbirds was a big deal. And I think it's like 35 years old. I follow some like the Great 80s or something Twitter account, and they had something up in the recent days, maybe last week or two, that like it was the 30th anniversary of, or 35th, I think. So I think it was on an 85 anniversary of the Thornbirds, which was a huge deal. But it was cool back then because everybody watched it. There wasn't like now you watch it when you watch it, and if you got to be quiet about it until everybody else has watched it, and you can talk about it. Everybody watched it. It was like an event.
Well, I think you actually have to, for our younger listeners, explain what a miniseries even is.
Well, I mean, it's basically a Netflix series, but it was on a network, and it was full of commercials. And I think most miniseries would run on consecutive nights, so it would probably be like a 2-hour show, and like
it would almost like a movie
cut
each
up
night.
Yeah,
right?
So like Winds of War is 7, like basically 2-hour episodes. I mean, it obviously cut a ton for commercials. They don't show commercials. Obviously, it just kind of goes black, and you come back, and I was thinking, God, we had to sit through all those commercials. But you had your chance to go to the bathroom, you got your snack, whatever. So it was fine. We were used to it. But yeah, so it would have been like this series is probably 10 hours long, but they cut it into like, actually it's probably more than that. It's probably more like 12 or 14 hours. And they cut it into nights. And I think it probably ran on consecutive nights, and then maybe not over the weekend. It might have just been on weeknights. So yeah, so you could not binge it. You had to tune in every night, but everybody was tuning in. Like Thornbirds was huge. I think Winds of War was huge. The first miniseries I remember from my youth would have to be Roots, but I didn't watch it, but I know it gave us LeVar Burton, right?
Yes.
I never watched that one, but I know that it was a big deal. But miniseries were like a huge deal. And there were these things like, the annual showing of Wizard of Oz. That would be a huge deal, right? Like, oh my God, it's on tonight. Like that was like you would make an appointment to watch that because you didn't have VCR started coming in during the 80s, but they were $5,000 or whatever they were like. We didn't have one we had Betamax, so yeah, we did.
Made a wise choice. The only thing you could have done worse at that point was a laser disc.
Those were cool though. They looked pretty sweet. There's no way my parents were going to get that, but it was a thing though. Do you not remember like when the Christmas shows were on? Like that was a thing. We didn't have an abundance of them. We couldn't watch them whenever we wanted. We had to watch it when it was on, or you missed it for forever till the next year.
Yeah, no, I remember. The miniseries I remember from my youth was V. Do you remember V?
I do remember it. The only thing I remember about it, though, is I think the actor that ended up playing Freddy Krueger was in it. That's my one memory of it.
Well, V was a miniseries that it was about a race of aliens that came to Earth and they pretended to be our friends, but then what they really wanted to do was bring us back to their home planet. We were basically a farm. We were a food source for them. And so it was, listen, this was back in, I think 1983. Sci-fi was really starting to become huge between Star Wars. They brought Star Trek back for the feature films. So of course television looked at the feature film success of sci-fi and said, well, I want in. So they had this show. So it was a mini series, and then it later developed into a weekly TV series, and that's the one I remember watching and liking.
Were they lizards underneath their
Yes.
people's? Okay, I do remember
they were
that.
lizard people, but they put on human costumes and makeup and stuff to make themselves look human, but they were aliens.
There were a lot of miniseries. Another big one that gave us, well, I mean, it didn't give us, but it was a Patrick Swayze vehicle, was North and South. Now, I remember that being a big one.
Robert England? What was his name? That was the
Freddy Krueger.
Freddy Krueger guy.
Yeah, pretty sure he was in V.
Yeah, he was. But yeah, you're right. North and South was big. Who was the other big star in North and South?
I don't know. Was there another big star? I briefly did a little research and I looked at a picture of Swayze and the other guy. I was like, I have no idea who that is. I have no idea
Kirstie
who it
Alley
is.
was in it.
She was, and oh God, I can't remember anybody else that was in it. I just remember Swayze.
David Carradine.
Okay.
Hal Holbrook. Hal Holbrook, it feels like, is in every North and South.
There's just some people that are made for that,
Yeah.
They're just made to be in historic period pieces. I know that was a big one.
It was, and it was right smack dab in the middle of the 80s, 85.
And I bet if we rewatch it, my kids would probably be like, oh my God, this is racist.
Oh, well, probably.
We were watching something. What was it? Oh God. I was watching some movie. I think it may have been from the 40s. It was not good. The things that they were saying, I was like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, on a side note, you brought that up. I was, watching YouTube on my big screen the other night, and things just pop up, and there was a video that someone put together, a compilation of politically incorrect commercials.
Oh no.
And I turned it on and my daughter's jaw just dropped.
Oh
The
no.
wife that's really upset that she can't make a good cup of coffee for her husband as he's going to work. And there was a really funny Flintstones commercial for Winston cigarettes.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah. Fred and Wilma were smoking cigarettes. And so Wilma and Betty were outside doing yard work, and Fred said, Barney said something like, I can't stand watching them work this hard. And Fred said, yeah, you're right. Let's go in the back where we can't see them.
Oh, no. I coughed. I'm sorry. I apologize to absolutely everybody.
So was it a dry cough?
It's the allergy cough, It's allergy season. It's not good.
Yeah. Are you talking yourself into symptoms?
No.
I just coughed. It was kind of dry.
I'm telling you, I'm waiting for the headache. The headache is the thing. I'm waiting for that. When the headache comes, I had a slight one yesterday because I waited. Because I'm addicted to Diet Coke. It's a bad habit. It's terrible. I get it. And it was like noon before I had one yesterday. I was like, I've got the headache. The headache has arrived. But nope, just needed Diet Coke and all was well. I am trying to remember some of the other miniseries. The one, and I don't think this was in the 80s. I think it was very early 90s, was It. I mean, there was a lot of Stephen King stuff done because they had one... The Stand, is that what it was called? It was like a pandemic like we're dealing with right now. He had something similar to that, and he had a lot of one-offs like Christine and other things like that I think were in the movie theater. But the The original It is pretty scary. My youngest is really into It. She likes she likes the two that just came out in recent years. But she likes to go back and watch the miniseries too, and it's pretty creepy. You know, it had like who's in it? Like what's his name from Night Court? Harry Anderson says.
Yes. Yeah.
What else did it have? It had like John Boy from the Waltons.
Oh, John Boy.
Did you not watch it?
No.
Have you ever seen? Oh, it's kind of scary. It's kind of creepy.
Well, one I thought that maybe you had watched was Lonesome Dove.
Nah. I think maybe we probably. Who was in it though?
Who was in Lonesome Dove?
Yeah.
Robert Duvall,
yes!
Tommy Lee Jones,
Okay,
Danny Glover,
yeah,
Diane Lane. Yeah, that was a Western miniseries, and from what I remember, was that another miniseries that the ratings were so good they made it into a television series?
Possibly.
Or am I misremembering that?
Possibly. I mean, there's so many things that are similar that it's hard to sometimes tell the difference between some of them, because I know like Glenn Close was in like Sarah Plain and Tall or something, and I don't know what that was really. But it's similar. It's similar. Oh.
This has nothing to do with the miniseries subject that we have, but that Sarah Plain and Tall reminded me of a show. I never watched it. I turned it off as soon as it came on. But do you remember a show called Mary Hartman?
I remember not being able to watch it. I know that. I do remember that.
I remember the beginning. You'd hear some girl or woman yelling, "Mary Hartman, Mary Hartman,"
yes.
And then the theme would come on, and I was a young kid, and I was like, I don't really care too much about Mary Hartman, and I couldn't turn this off. But I thought maybe it was something you got into, you were watching, but no.
Oh, I think it had mature themes that I was not allowed. To be a part of. Here's one now. From Thornbirds, we have Richard Chamberlain.
Mm-hmm.
And he also did one called Shogun, which I also remember being a thing. He was like the king of the miniseries in the 80s. But can you even picture who he is?
Oh, yeah. I remember. Listen, I didn't watch Thornbirds, but Thornbirds was, I think, if people of our generation had to name a few miniseries from the 80s, you hit them. Roots and Thornbirds. I remember Thornbirds was such a big thing, and all the women in the 80s were
Woo! And I think that
Richard Chamberlain.
Yeah, I don't think he was interested in the ladies. I think he was maybe not interested in ladies.
Is that your theory?
That's
or do you,
my theory.
I don't want to get sued by the Richard Chamberlain estate.
Why, is he not with us?
No, I don't believe so.
Is he not?
Oh, I'm wrong.
The Stand.
He is with us still.
Right. I'm going through a miniseries thing. There's oh well, that's from you're not gonna have known that one. Sorry, I'm scrolling through stuff.
Well, and by the way, according to Wikipedia, you are correct.
That he is not.
He was outed as a gay man at the age of 55 by the French women's magazine. Yes, a French women's magazine in 1989.
Yeah, but he was really, that's that early. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a stud muffin, though, there for a lot of the miniseries.
Yeah.
There wasn't enough Dirk Benedict in miniseries.
I've been saying that for years.
And also, what is the plural of miniseries?
Miniseries.
Is it? Is that a thing?
Minis series.
I don't know. I was thinking, because I'm like, you know me, I am such a professional that I was thinking ahead to what the title of this episode should be. And then I was like, miniseries that we loved from the 80s. The best of 80s miniseries.
How about the 1980s, the decade of the miniseries?
Ooh.
I found one that I had forgotten about that I remember watching. My mother was a conservative Republican, but she had a thing for JFK, and they had a Kennedy miniseries starring Martin Sheen and Blair Brown as Jackie Kennedy.
This is definitely ringing a bell.
Yeah, it was a 5-hour miniseries about
That's
the Kennedy. Yeah, just
Only
5 hours. Yeah, 5
For
hours.
heaven's sake.
Yeah. So I remember watching that because my mother had to watch it because JFK talked to my mother, said something to my mother.
What?
In 1960. Yes, campaigning in Michigan. She was standing on a sidewalk, and he was driving by, and she was with my aunt, her sister, and my aunt, as I've heard this story a million times, said, there he is. And my mom couldn't see him, and she said, well, where is he? And he was right on top of her as they were driving by, and he said, here I am.
Oh my.
Yes, so
that's pretty impressive.
It is a cool story. So she had always, like, we had a bust of the Kennedy or of JFK in our basement, and it was, oh, how amazing that JFK said something to her. And so I heard that story so many times when she was alive, and so I remember watching Kennedy, the miniseries.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I've come from an Irish Catholic family, and my parents were of the same age as well. I mean, no, not the same age, younger, but like when they were adults when he became president, and they were probably had a few kids because we're a Catholic family. We had a few kids,
right?
So we always kind of thought positively of them. I remember liking the Kennedys when I was a kid. One of the miniseries that nobody will remember but me is from the 80s, was called The Last Convertible, and it's based on a book that I just love. And the Kennedys show up in the book, so I've kind of always was kind of into the Kennedys, but then I was not into them when I actually kind of started learning about what they're really all about, and not so good. What I was going to say is John Mulaney. Do you know that comedian John Mulaney?
Yes.
He has a funny bit because his parents met at Georgetown, and they were at Georgetown at the same time that Bill Clinton was at Georgetown. Mm-hmm. And then he has this, I can't do it justice because he's just hysterical. But his mom, I guess there's a tradition there where the men would wait at the library and help walk the women back to their dorms so that they'd be safe. And apparently Bill Clinton would be out there every night waiting to walk many women back to their dorms.
Oh, what a nice guy.
Yeah, what a good guy he was. So one night she was at the library and she came out and there he was. And so he walked her home to her dorm, back to her dorm, and she's, I wish I'd invited him up for a beer, but she didn't. And then I guess when he was campaigning in 92, when he was first running for president, he was whatever their hometown, and John Mulaney was like 10 or something, and he was doing the fundraiser for Georgetown alumni. So she's like, oh, we're going. And so she brings John Mulaney, the 10-year-old, as her date because her husband's a conservative and doesn't like him at all. And and she's like, I have to say hi. And he remembered her. He's like, hey, Ellen. He knew her name. He remembered her. And
wow.
He walked the ladies home, which is not surprising.
No,
it's
not surprising.
He's super creepy, and he's always has been. And I won't get into it, but maybe there'll be a mini series about him one day, right?
Well, say they have a mini series on Bill Clinton. Who plays Bill Clinton?
That's a good question. Who would play him? McConaughey? I don't know. Who would play him?
Well, it depends on when.
DiCaprio, maybe? I don't know.
Well, if it were he was president when he was in his mid 40s to early 50s. So,
yeah, I think so.
See, the immediate name that popped into my head was Tom Hanks, but Tom's getting a little little long in the tooth now.
Tom
Play
is
some.
way too old. You got to hand it to
Yeah.
somebody. You know what they do though? They get British or Australian actors to do everything now. So it'll be
Right.
somebody that we don't know.
Oh, just another foreigner taking a job
That's
from an
right.
American.
Close the borders. But apparently they're doing way better. At least Australia and New Zealand are doing way better containing coronavirus than we are. So there
I
you have
re
it.
I remember a miniseries. I rented the tape, the VHS tape of this miniseries at my local
Ooh,
at Panorama Video in Saginaw, Michigan. So,
we did not have that. We had
okay.
Errol's. Did you have
Oh
Errol's? Must have been a
no.
local.
Well, before the chains got involved, you had mom and pop video stores. We had
Yeah.
a video store in a roller rink. I
Oh,
remember.
nice.
Yeah. But I went to this mom and pop video store and I rented World War III, a mini series starring David Soul, Kathy Lee Crosby, and Rock Hudson.
Loved David Soul with a passion. He was also in
Really?
Salem's Lot, which was, I don't know, I mean, it was, I guess, technically a miniseries, which is another Stephen King, but it might have been just like a two-nighter. I don't think it was like a super long miniseries.
Mm.
I love David Soul. I loved him.
And that's another one I would like to go back and revisit, but I
What is
won't
the
because
premise? What is the plot?
I believe if I remember correctly, the Russians were invading Alaska and we had they wanted to quiet our NORAD facility there to make sure that we wouldn't be able to notice a first strike from the Russians and their nuclear missiles, and the US catches wind of it, and it's there's intrigue and
I miss this.
spies, and spoiler alert, it doesn't end well. So for any of us
I don't like fake wars. I only like the real ones. I can't get into the fake war.
you
But
like
did
the
you say that
real-
Kathy Lee Crosby was in it?
Yes, Kathy Lee Crosby was in it. David Soul,
Joe
Brian
Theismann's
Key.
former girlfriend who was by his side when Lawrence Taylor snapped his leg in half. That same one?
Oh yeah. Oh, I didn't know that they were an item.
Oh, yeah, she was by his side. She was by his stretcher as he was stretchered off the field with his leg snapped in two.
See, I only remember her from That's Incredible.
She was on That's Incredible. Yep, but she was, well, I don't think he ever married her, but they definitely were a thing.
Oh.
Yeah,
Wow.
David Soul, obviously, Hutch on Starsky and Hutch. I mean, a babe, a total babe. And he also had a song, Don't Give Up on Us, Baby. I know my David Soul factoids.
Well, of course, Brian Keith was in it, and he was in the Parent Trap.
He was also, wasn't he Uncle Beale on Family Affair? With Sissy and Buffy and the other guy, Jody. Do you remember Family Affair?
Yes, you're right. He was on. He was in Family Affair. Hardcastle and McCormick.
Hmm.
You remember Hardcastle and McCormick?
I do. I didn't watch that. That wasn't for
I
chicks.
didn't either. I just remember the ads.
It wasn't for ladies.
So, wow.
I don't remember that miniseries, but if it had David Soul, it might be worth revisiting because I enjoy him.
Well, like I said, I hope I didn't give away too much of the plot. I don't even know if you'd be able to find that anymore.
Well, you can find anything on YouTube. I'm telling you. It might have like a Portuguese name, but you can find it. Everything's on here. Because when I'm watching Winds of War, they're calling it Saprevodome or some. I have no idea what language it is, but that's how they hide it. I'll find it. I'll find it for you. Because if it's got David Soul, I will find it for you.
I'll tell you what. I found the trailer on IMDb. I will make sure to send that to you after the show is over.
What year, though? Because there is a point at which David Soul took a turn.
Oh, it's 1982.
Okay, he's all right. He'll be all right then. But he took a turn for the worse.
Oh, here's
He
the.
never had a lot of hair, and I think that turned into a problem.
In 1987, Soviet paratroopers drop into Alaska to sabotage the oil pipeline in retaliation against the United States grain embargo. A skirmish occurs at the pumping station. Oh, so here you go. There you go.
That's
It
what
was rated.
started it, huh?
Yeah, it was rated. It's got a 6.7 out of 10
That's not
rating
bad.
on IMDb. So
That is not bad because it sounds a lot worse.
yeah, it's a 3 hour and 20-minute miniseries.
I mean,
2
it
episodes.
had Rock Hudson. I mean,
Yeah,
Rock
Rock
Hudson circa early 80s he was just basically one rung above Love Boat at that point, right? Even though he did get Dynasty.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, and he kissed. He was HIV positive at the
Scandal.
time, right? Or
Yep.
did he have AIDS? I can't
Oh,
remember.
he was full blown, yeah.
And he kissed. What was the actress's name? Linda Evans.
Linda Evans. You got your Linda straight. That's pretty good.
Yeah, Linda Evans. And there
it was
was
a thing.
big controversy about him putting her at risk of getting the HIV virus.
I
Wow.
do remember that. He was like the big first high profile HIV AIDS case person star.
As an actor, yeah.
Yeah, that was a big
Absolutely.
deal. I do remember
It was a
that.
big-
That was huge because we didn't know nothing about it. And now, I mean, fast forward, 35 years, and we've got all the same epidemiologists out there that were helping to solve AIDS, helping to solve, well, hopefully, figure out this whole coronavirus thing. But yeah,
Right.
that was a big deal.
So I promise you, I will send you the trailer to.
I mean, I don't know why you can't see what's so great about David Soul by just looking at him, but whatever. I mean,
I
did you
won't.
watch Starsky and Hutch?
No.
All right.
But I just started watching Curb Your Enthusiasm.
You'll enjoy it.
There's hope. Maybe I could go revisit Starsky and Hutch.
That would be a good one. That would be a good one to find. I have never seen that on reruns.
Not even on YouTube.
I haven't looked because I don't particularly enjoy revisiting old stuff like that. I don't know why, but
Because it's not as good as
no,
you
it's
remember
not.
it.
I know because I was like 7. I was like, ooh. I don't know why, as a 7-year-old, I thought he was handsome, but I did. I was like, hoo hoo, David Soul.
Was it because your mother would talk about how handsome?
No, my mom is not a TV watcher much. So it was anything my dad watched. So if he watched it, well, you know, an older sibling. I didn't get to choose anything. You have
course.
7 older siblings, 1 TV. Well, except because my husband, my brother had a TV. He had got the black and white TV in his room, but the color TV, my dad or the oldest, you know, there was a pecking order.
Right.
So I watched whatever anybody else was watching.
Jeez,
So
that's too bad. I had my own TV in my room.
yeah, so did my brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little 13-inch color TV. I had to get up and change the channel by turning the knob and then going back and sitting
my kids
down.
just they just do not appreciate what we went through. Plus, my daughter, my 19-year-old, was in here right before we started recording, telling me that our generation went through nothing. Like her generation is basically like, you know, World War II generation, in that their lives have been so disrupted and how horrible, and our generation went through nothing. I'm like, yeah, nothing but the threat of nuclear war every single day of our lives. What are you talking about? I mean,
Exactly.
she was joking.
And
Right?
it wasn't a mini series, but when the day after came out.
Right? I didn't watch it.
You didn't watch it?
No, but that was another big TV event.
It was a big TV event. It was a movie about what would happen if the United States got into a nuclear war. And it scared the living hell out of any kid that watched it. And it was so ridiculous at the time, growing up and having teachers. We were just at the tail end of preparing for a nuclear strike at school when you would get underneath your desk. You remember doing stuff like that?
We never did that because I'm pretty sure, like, we're so close to DC that the thought basically was, if DC gets hit by a nuke, you kids are toast.
Exactly.
We never did. Yeah, because, like, my high school was literally, it was in Arlington, Virginia. It's 2 miles from the Pentagon, 2.5 miles from DC. Like, if it hit DC, the high school was gone. It was toast.
I'd be very curious to see my elementary school was built in 1938, and I still
What?
remember, yes,
Wow.
and I still remember exactly where the fallout shelter sign was
Amazing.
at my elementary school on the outside by the playground. I wonder if it's still there.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah, they
no,
don't understand. This generation doesn't understand what we went through.
no. I mean, when Reagan was sworn in, he was going to bring us nuclear war. That was the constant narrative from the mainstream media and Democrats was, oh, this old lunatic he's got his finger on the button, and we're all so close to nuclear war. If only we can appeal to the Soviets.
If we just disarm, if it's
Yes.
worldwide disarmament,
Right.
then
Oh my
that'll
goodness.
solve everything. If everybody just agrees to just do away with everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Man, these kids today, they don't understand.
They don't understand. I was just like, they've done like little things like, if a nuke were to drop on DC, this first 3 mile radius, you're dead, you're
Yes.
incinerated. Then, so it does like, in the next concentric circle, you are, it's nuclear winter for the next 15. So we just knew, like, it was just going to be over with. But until I saw War Games with Matthew Broderick, it didn't seem real to me. And then I realized how close we'd be to having nuclear war, because someone like Matthew Broderick can tap in, he can break into the system, and he can launch it himself.
Right.
And then I was like, well, great.
And now to find out in 2020 that our nuclear war deployment system is basically on the same type of computers that Matthew Broderick is hacking into.
What about
1984?
Star Wars? That sounded like the best thing in the history of the world. Reagan's whole Star Wars thing where it was going to, intercept everything. I was like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah.
It's like, Space Force. These are great ideas, big ideas. We need to do them.
Well, we used to think big, and that's one of the things that's a little bit depressing about this virus. When I heard Governor Newsom out in California say a week ago that, listen, we don't want NFL games to start in September. I think that we might as well just say that's not going to happen. It's like, it doesn't feel like a very American thing to say. It used to be we would think big. We're going to come up with solutions for our current problems, and we're going to overcome them. And it's just, there's like a little bit of a surrender mentality now.
There kind of is. And people are just looking at you like you're a criminal if you're on the same side of the sidewalk as they. It's just insane. It's crazy. It needs to end before people take it too seriously, because I don't know if you've gone out just for a walk, but people just like, they will go 20 miles around you so that they do not come anywhere near you. I'm like, oh my God. I think we are being surrender monkeys a little bit.
They are, but I'm actually thinking that I hope that's one of the things that sticks after this whole thing is over.
You want nobody near you?
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could keep some of the social distancing and make it part of our social norms after it's all over.
Well,
too much small talk at the grocery store. I really don't need to talk to someone behind me in the 10 items or less about the weather. If they could be 6 feet away from me while I'm standing there waiting for the customer ahead of me to ring their items up and leave, that
all
would be
your grocery
great.
stores have the lines like stand here, do
Yes.
not stand here. Like, okay,
Yes.
Gotcha. I stepped over the line too close to the Chipotle lady, and I thought I was going to get arrested. I was like, whoa, I will get back behind the line. I'm very, very sorry. But Dr. Fauci, he's saying that we may have to just do away with handshakes for forever. We will not be shaking hands.
Okay.
I think we're going to be back to normal. Like, just how I feel. Maybe I'm wrong. I just think eventually, after 9/11, everything was going to change. We all are on the same side. Love, love, love. Love your country. Love your neighbor. It's all great. That went away. That went away. And I think this will eventually go away, too. I have no clue how long it'll take. I hope it's sooner rather than later, but I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I don't know that it's a bad thing that we go back to the way it was. I don't know, but I think it does.
Well, I think too often we're trapped in the moment and think that that's how everything is going to be in the future. And we're not thinking about American innovation, the amount of people around the world, scientists, doctors who are working tirelessly to figure out a vaccine or a treatment. We may find by the time football season rolls around that they have some sort of advanced treatment that will keep people out of the ICU altogether if they get this virus. We just don't know what the future holds. So again, and it's amazing to me that I'm the one that's being an optimist. I just feel like
what's going on?
Yeah, right? I'm a negative Nancy, but I just have to believe America, the American innovation, the people around the globe are trying to figure out a solution to this problem. The solution is going to be sooner. It's going to come to us sooner rather than later.
It has to. Fingers Malloy, I would like to ask you about an interview I hear that you did recently for one of your other podcasts with Rush Limbaugh's producer. Is that what he?
Yes, producer, call screener, James Golden. You know him better as Bo Snerdley.
What the heck? How did that happen?
Well, listen, I got a nice Rolodex going.
I know you do. Way better than mine.
Yes, well, this was actually my co-host, Tracy L. Connors, on the podcast that we do called Enough Already. She's been friends with James Bo Snerdley for quite some time, and we've had him on the show previously. We did a lot more guests when we first launched back in 2016, but now that we both have a lot of time on our hands, we said, well, let's start bringing some guests back on. So we had James on, and he shares with us how he got the name Bo Snerdley and tells us a few inside stories about what's going on over at the EIB network. And
really?
Yes.
Any updates on Rush's health?
I don't want to give away too much, but a little tease. Yeah, let's just say they're all optimistic there. But again, we didn't want to pry too much. Rush has been pretty open about how he's struggling with how much he wants to share with his audience because he doesn't want to make the Rush Limbaugh radio program about his health. So, but we talk a little bit about that, and he's got a new PAC.
I was going to ask you about that because I'm somehow on his list, and I get email fundraising pitches every once in a while. And I was like, huh.
Yep. So James started a new PAC. It's all about outreach into the African American community, and so it's really great. You can check it out on any of your favorite podcast platforms. The name of the show is Enough Already, and it just hit this week. So what is it, April 9th? So just check out the latest episode of Enough Already, and you'll be able to hear an hour and 10-minute conversation with James Golden, also known as Bo Snerdley from the Rush Limbaugh radio show.
I'm impressed. What are you going to do to top that?
Listen, I just did a Gen X podcast with Terry Christon.
Well, that is pretty impressive because, yeah. We'll just leave it at that.
Watch World War III.
You'll like it. I'm going to actually look up the entire life history of David Soul, and maybe that'll be my thing. I might watch every David Soul, everything he's ever done. He's in something recently. I saw him. I want to say that it's Catastrophe. I don't know if you know. It's an Amazon Prime show. It's got the comedian Rob Delaney. Do you know him? He's a
name sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's actually funny, but his politics are terrible. But he's really funny in it. And I think David Soul showed up in that. And I was like, and actually Carrie Fisher played his mother in it.
Oh.
It's funny. He marries a British. It's a very good series actually. It's very funny. So yeah, he didn't age great. I wouldn't say he's kind of like some of the guys that age and they start wearing like Hawaiian shirty type things, big tents and stuff like
Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah. So it didn't turn out well, but that happens.
It does.
We have Starsky and Hutch to look back on. What else do you have going on as we wrap up this show? You definitely people need to check out the Enough Already podcast.
Yes.
What about your other things that you're doing?
Well, the Snark Factor is also available in podcast form. That's the show that I host Sunday mornings on Wham Talk 1600 AM 92.7 FM in southeastern Michigan. I also am part of the Eat, Drink, Smoke podcast with syndicated radio talk show host Tony Katz. You can find all of this stuff over at my website, fingersmalloy.com.
Very cool. Excellent. And of course, if people are interested in Smart Girl Politics, obviously we are also on all of those platforms for podcasts. So, but we especially love that we're part of the Ricochet Network. So that's cool. Check them out if you haven't. If you're a conservative that wants to be involved in a conservative community online, and what better time than now to try and find some online people to be friends with. It's a great place. So you should go check that out. But also come join us over on the Facebook page at facebook.com/smartgirlpolitics. We try to keep it lively. I don't know what's going on. Nobody seems to be on Facebook. Apparently, everybody has actual things that they're doing in their lives, unlike me, who's like on Facebook and like, where is everybody? Like, people are out planting gardens. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing, but they're apparently not online. But I am. So join me over at Smart Girl Politics on the Facebook page. But anything else you would like to plug before we wrap up?
I mean, facebook.com/fingersmalloy radio, and follow me on Twitter at fingersmalloy.
Well, that
thank
sounds
you, Teri.
Good. Yes, absolutely. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Feel free to suggest ideas of what we can talk about as Gen Xers. We might have to get like historical, like, hey, remember? I don't know. Well, I don't even have an example ready, so that was terrible podcasting. But it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
I have an idea for next week.
Well, we'll take that offline, so we don't want to spoil anything. But thanks, everybody, for listening. I hope all of you are doing well in your isolation, that you're all healthy and that your family's healthy. And if not, we obviously will be thinking about everybody that's not doing well and hoping that they get better and that all of this goes away soon. But thanks for tuning in, and we will chat with you all next time on the Smart Girl Politics podcast. Bye.